I'm driving with my dad and one of my friends on the way to my football game Saturday morning when game kickoff at 1 p.m. And I was so nervous that I couldn't speak. And I know that that actually was the same with basically every game that I had. I used to be an absolute mental midget. I don't know if you're allowed to say that anymore, but that's who I was back in the day. I used to play sports just like most people probably. Uh, Soccer, football, wrestling, rugby, a little bit of basketball, and all of my memories of playing sports are basically tainted from just the negative emotion of being crippled by fear. I was so nervous. I was nervous before every sports game. To be honest, I was nervous before like all my practices. It's kind of like embarrassing. I think I was embarrassed at the time of it because I'm like, why am I nervous for this? And that that is, I mean, the when that happened was like basically just childhood until I ended sports, which would have been like, I guess just after high school, before, yeah, like 18, 19 or whatever. A decade and a half or whatever it was. And I remember definitely being relieved when I finally quit my football team. And I love football, but man, I was like crippled by fear going into these games. Like I remember one interaction in particular. It wasn't even an interaction because I couldn't talk, but I'm driving with my dad and one of my friends on the way to my football game Saturday morning when game kickoff at 1 p.m. And I was so nervous that I couldn't speak. And I know that that actually was the same with basically every game that I had. But I just remember this one in particular, but like I couldn't talk. And I still have that now. It's funny where if I get nervous before something, I struggle to like verbalize. I struggle to just talk. I think it's because I just go very internal, and then there's like a lot of noise in my head, in my chest, and tightness, just those feelings of nerves that like it's hard for me to like talk. I guess a lot of people when they get nervous, it could be the opposite. It's like they end up just like verbal diarrhea, can't talk, can't stop talking, just nervous energy or whatever. But like I'm the opposite. I go inside myself and just can't express it, I guess, in a healthy way. And I had this for like the longest time. And I've reflected on it and I've thought about it. I've thought about it a lot actually after that happened. But like even in my like early mid-20s, but I wasn't like in a place where I cared about like personal development, being a better person. I didn't really know what like values I cared about in my life. Like, I didn't have any direction morally. So I guess I didn't really have much maturity at all, just in every area. So I didn't really think about this stuff. I was aware of it. So I guess I thought about it in like a very shallow perspective. But, since then I've thought about it. I'm like, why was I so afraid? Because ultimately that's what it is. Like if you're nervous before something, and I guess you could define nervousness differently. I think like it could be a mixture of like excited nerves because like it's positive excitement, but you're also nervous because it's like it's a big thing that's happening, which is good. But nervousness to me, at least for me anyway, like I kind of define it as it leans a little bit more negative just because of the emotions that I associated with it. And I've thought about like why all that happened. And like I think about it before, it's like I didn't have any control over my thoughts, didn't have any control over my feelings. So it just like ran wild. So I was like, I put crazy expectations on myself that were completely unrealistic. And that led to high pressure for things that didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but they mattered to me for whatever reason. I just didn't think about why they mattered to me at the time. And I think also struggled with confidence, which I probably didn't think about at the time either. So it's like it's a perfect storm of just going through life in fear, you know? And it was like super unfortunate because sports is such a positive experience. And there was lots of positive experiences throughout sports, but um it's unfortunate because like when I think about my childhood sports, I loved so much of it, but it's still so tainted by just those negative feelings that I had before every single freaking game. And then, you know, I quit sports and that's like before I get in my 20s and then I go to college and then I get a degree in partying. And then that's when I get, you know, all these mental health issues that I probably already had started to be exposed and get way worse. And that's when I started doing drugs, drinking all the time. And then, you know, I look back on that and reflect, and it was like everything that went on in my adolescence was now just like 10x, just like way worse. And so all that like fear-based perspective that I already had was now like so much worse in the sense of now I'm like looking at everything negatively, literally everything. And since I'm in it, I can't really even tell. I can't be honest about that with myself. But looking back, I'm like, I was looking at everything in a negative perspective, looking for things to go wrong, expecting things to go wrong, and then worrying about it. Even if they weren't likely to go wrong, I would just, you know, I would hyper focus on it and obsess. And then that would take me out of the present moment and ruin the present moment, you know? And like it really does actually taint a lot of experiences for people. And I think a lot of people live their lives like that. I I lived my life just like anxious for so long. And, you know, I still get nervous for stuff. I think that's not now I look at that a little bit differently. It's like that's being nervous for something isn't inherently negative. You know, for me, for so many years, it was negative because of the just the negative emotions and the discomfort that I associated with it. And I guess my maladaptive response to it is just an unhealthy response to feeling those emotions. And then it ended up being a bad thing, you could really say. But I don't think nervousness has to be a bad thing. It's like the now when I look at it, if I have something in my life where I do feel anxiety about, concern, worry, and whatever, even some level of fear, then I'm much better at actually like looking at it and being like, okay, this doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's an uncomfortable feeling. I can like kind of assess that a little bit deeper now and then figure out like, what am I actually afraid of? You know? And then sometimes I'm just a little bit nervous and it's fine. That's not necessarily a bad thing anyway. So it's like, it took me a while to get there, especially because, you know, where did I leave off here? I was like, I had all these mental health and drug issues in my 20s. So it wasn't until I'm 33 now. So it wasn't until like 2017 or so where I started getting a lot of physical health issues on top of my mental health issues. And that's when I like my sleep was super bad. I had a lot of like insomnia, really actually bad insomnia where I couldn't sleep. And if I did sleep, it was extremely low quality. And then on top of that, I had these digestive issues that were so severe and seemed to like overlap with the sleep issues. And all of that just created this like feedback loop of like bad or poor mental health, poor physical health, poor mental health, poor physical health. And it just kept going, making both those things worse. So physically and psychologically and emotionally, just like not healthy in any way. And they were kind of feeding into each other. It's like that got like from 2017 until 2021, somewhere in 2021. So good, like, yeah, 4 or 5 years where I was having panic attacks pretty regularly. And most of them were not serious to the point where like, I can't breathe. I think I'm going to die. I need to go to the hospital. But if I think about it, it's like I had these like mild panic attacks where I completely crumbled under the amount of stress that I was, I guess, perceiving that I had. Seemed very real to me, felt very real, which then it did make it real. And it happened so often, but I didn't even know that it was bad. Like I knew that I was unhealthy, but I didn't know like, oh my goodness, I'm having panic attacks like every single week. I don't really know what to do about this now. You know, I knew I wasn't well, but I didn't have any direction. Like I saw so many from the physical health perspective. It's like I saw so many different like gastroenterologists, naturopaths, and specialists. And then from the psychological perspective, I did therapy several times. I went to an ADHD specialist. Um, what else did I do? I don't know. I mean, several different medications, SSRI medications and anti-anxiety medications and things for that. And so there was like all these things that I tried, but nothing was working. And it seemed like it was getting worse at certain times. I had panic attacks at one point. I can think of two in particular where like I did have to go to the hospital because it was so bad. It's like I at the point where I'm collapsing on the floor and I'm like, I actually feel like I could pass out and die here. And that's a pretty severe panic attack. And you may be able to relate to that. I think those are not terribly uncommon, but a lot of people probably don't talk about those. So it probably feels more rare, but I think that's part of life for a lot of people. And for me, it was like, I look back and I'm like, why did that happen? I think it all started back like in childhood when I had these like sports games. And it wasn't sports that caused it, but just I can see it starting back then because of my response before my football games, where it's like I would have some level of psychological stress that I was nervous about, I was fearful about, and then I would not react or respond in a healthy way. It's like I had this stress put on me, either self-inflicted or not, whether in control of or not, whatever. But regardless, I had this stress on me and then I'm faced with it and I didn't know what to do. In fact, not knowing what to do, I end up just reverting back into uh, completely being useless, not being able to make a decision, not being able to move forward, not being able to function in most cases. And that's what a panic attack is. It's like feeling like you have no way out, you know? And that happened for a long time. It's like, I think it was probably, 2021 to 2022, because I definitely remember I met Sam at the end of 2020 and she experienced some of these panic attacks in 2021 for sure. And so it would have been like, I don't know, end of 2021 to 2022. So it's only like 3-ish years ago, 2 to 3 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago, where it's like I made some changes and I started to notice that I was making less and less, or I was having less and less panic attacks and less anxiety overall, which makes sense. You know, I could respond to stress in life in a way that was actually productive and healthy. Some of the changes that I made that worked for me was I started taking testosterone. I started, Sam suggested this, is taking gluten out of my diet. I don't have anything against gluten. I think most people are fine with gluten, but I had just noticed some patterns in the way that I ate as it related to my mental health, especially around like gluten containing foods. And Sam was like, you should just go fully gluten free to test this out. And I didn't want to at first, but I did. I'm glad I did. I'm glad she suggested that because there appeared to be some massive changes from going gluten free, as well as I think the testosterone helped because both of those happened kind of similar times. So it's tough to say how much each one helped, but that combined with, uh, honestly repairing my relationship with God, getting closer to God, having a supportive partner, Sam, and then a number of other like small little things, just changing my food and things like that, which felt very stuck at the time. Felt like I couldn't really eat anything without having a bad emotional or psychological or physical reaction to it. But all those things together, I was like, I'm starting to notice that I can sleep better. My overall mental health is better. My anxiety is down. I'm not having these depressive periods as much because that would be normal where I just go through these depressive periods that felt like they come out of nowhere for no reason at all. But that started going away. One of the other things that I did was I did a consult with Dr. Dwayne Jackson. So shout out to Dr. Dwayne Jackson because he was very, very helpful. Just because what he recommended for me wasn't anything mind blowing, but it was game changing in the sense of it was a catalyst for a lot of other things to improve, and it was the start of something changing even more drastically. Because I made these changes that I already suggested as far as like I was manipulating my hormones. I changed my diet as far as the gluten free thing. Some spiritual decisions and efforts that I made, and then all of that together, I noticed a big difference. But I was still really struggling with my physical health, and there seemed to be this link with my mental health, which comes as no shocker, I think, when we consider the link between those two things with all of humans. But it was relatively recently, like a year to a year and a half ago, where I did this. Maybe it was only a year ago now and maybe even maybe even less than a year ago, where I did this consult with Dr. Dwayne, and he made a few suggestions of what I should do. It was very, uh, like I said, it wasn't anything mind blowing, but it gave me at least like a direction and a process of like, okay, where do I go from here? And I pride myself on like looking into these things as much as I can. When I don't know the answer, I'm going to do my best to find the answer. And I couldn't figure it out. And obviously, Dwayne knows a lot more about this stuff than I do. So he was able to actually give me like a step by step process of be like, here's where you want to start. Okay. And I did that. And then from there, on top of the work that I'd already been doing, I seemed to develop this momentum that's now brought me to this place where, like, right now, 2024, I feel like I have control over my emotions. I feel like I have control over my sleep. I feel like I have control over my physical health. None of these things are perfect, but they're all so much better. I feel like life can throw curveballs at me, and I've had some thrown at me in the last year or so, where I've responded way better than I would have in the past. Way better. So it's kind of proving grounds for me that I am more capable than I was in the past, and I have better skills on managing this stress. Um, and that feels really freaking good. I I'm kind of, one of the things that I'm bringing this up for is I've kind of been through this journey. Now that I look back, it's like I would have looked at it like, oh, I've had a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 year journey since 2017 of like improving my mental and physical health. But really, it kind of, the journey started, even if I didn't consciously improve it until then, the journey really started like back when I was a kid playing sports. That's where it all started, because it all links together. And so I bring that up because I've changed a lot throughout those years, and I've changed a lot over the last 1 year. I've changed a lot over the last 5 years, and I've changed a lot over the last decade. And I'm proud of those changes because I feel like I'm better now. I feel like I'm moving more towards better ways of honestly enjoying life and actually having the skills needed to take advantage of the cool things that happens in life, And I bring it up because I see a lot of people, as I've improved my mindset, I see a lot of people struggle with that. It's like little things throughout life completely throw people off. It's like a little thing goes wrong and they have no idea how to manage. It completely ruins their day. Somebody's driving slow on the highway and you, they completely cut them off. That's like a classic one, whatever cliche example. But like that does happen where it's like, oh my goodness, it's super rainy outside and everyone's driving super slow. It's like, that's like a good example of just like a kind of a inert, mild thing that just happens in life, and it happens all the time. It's raining literally today. Like this happened to me on my way here. And it really matters on insofar as like how much I actually care about it. So, but I find I'm seeing examples of this as I interact with more and more people, and I'm kind of a mirror now. It's like, because of these changes that I've made in my own mental health and kind of just mindset and perspective shifts, I now see my old self in other people and the way that they react to some of these just stressors of life. A lot of things happen. Life throws you curveballs, a lot of things that we don't have control over. And I can kind of see it now where I'm like, man, if you can just look at that a little bit differently, it doesn't change what happened, but you being able to change your perception of it and your perspective of it makes life in this moment way more enjoyable. And you're able to actually, I don't know if happiness is the right word, but like you can at least find peace in the moment instead of living in this like weird cycle of, you're anxious about what's to happen. So that steals your present moment. And then something does happen that you don't like. And then you're like, oh my goodness, I knew something bad was going to happen. And then that doubles down and proves to you that like, oh, there's what I knew was going to happen. And now that the present moment is actually ruined. Right. And a lot of that comes down to like just deciding the perspective that you choose to take. And that's what I've been really working on this, because going back to the way that I used to think, I realized I had this lack of self-confidence. I had high expectations on myself that were completely impossible. I put a ton of pressure on myself. I didn't think about like what actually matters to me in life and then move towards those things. And one of the things that does matter to me is recognizing my own mortality and making the most out of my time here. and I want to enjoy it. And I recognize that bad things happen, tragedies happen, and life is going to happen. Life is going to throw me curveballs. So I have to find a way to manage that in a way that makes me at peace, you know? Maybe not, maybe doesn't make me happy per se, because a lot of people use that word, but at least at peace with how I'm navigating through life. And then I kind of look at it like no matter what happens, I can always find a way. I can always find a way. I can always find a way through, and I can always find that peace that I'm looking for. And there'll be phases where I will struggle to find that. That makes sense because there's going to be challenges that happen. But being confident, knowing that, even makes me feel peace in this moment right now. And I realize how many people are looking for that, but they don't even realize that their problem is that literally how they're looking at their own existence in life is ruining it for them right now. If they just chose a different perspective, it would be way better as opposed to outsourcing their own peace to like hoping everything goes perfectly because it will never go perfectly. Instead of just accepting it and then just literally going with the flow is probably the best way to put it, you know? And I see it with dieting a lot with people because, you know, dieting is very stressful. It's very uncomfortable. And it can be way more stressful and it can be way more uncomfortable if you choose to take a perspective that incites more anxiety and fear within you. You know, if you're constantly worried of like, I'm going to fail, something's going to go wrong, um, you know, uh, eventually I'm bound to binge and, you know, make a bad choice. I can't do this forever. I'm never meant to lose weight. I guess my body's broken. Like taking these perspectives, they're understandable, but a lot of people I think don't understand or aren't even aware that they can change those perspectives. They can change those beliefs. And once that starts to click and you move towards that, it makes everything so much easier. Not, it doesn't just make life easier, but coming from the perspective of going through a diet process, a weight loss process, it makes that process a million times easier when you're looking at it through the perspective of, I'm privileged that I get to do something like this. I'm excited for the changes I am continuing to make. I'm looking forward to the challenges that come my way so that I can use them as opportunities to be better. And I'm excited for the identity transformation that I'm making, not just the weight loss transformation. I know that I will not be happy at a lower body weight. I could be happy now, but I could also make life more enjoyable at a lower body weight because of all of the decisions required to get there. And that enhances my life in a million different ways. Confidence, more energy, better sleep, how you interact socially with people when you are proud of how you look. There's so many different things. And a lot of that comes down to literally just perspective, like how you actually think and examining like, okay, I'm feeling it's a lot of it is like mindfulness stuff, right? Like being able to actually just go through the exercise of like, okay, I don't feel good. This is something like I do a lot more now is like if I have a negative emotion, I start thinking about not the negative emotion. I start thinking about why am I feeling that? Is there something I can put my finger on? Is there evidence for why I should feel this? And then I start to examine it. And then usually I can like, it feels like a mountain at the start, but as I kind of go through that thought experiment, I can chop it down to size and realize, okay, there's nothing to be afraid of right now. I'm not going to judge myself for feeling a little bit nervous or agitated in this moment, but I feel a lot better now that I went through that thought process of realizing, okay, life isn't that scary. I'm going to be fine. Life's going to throw me curveballs, but I know I have the capabilities and the commitment to find a way to win. You know what I mean? And so yeah, that's the kind of wave I'm on right now. I'm low key obsessed with just like thinking about how I think. And it might not turn some people on, but it's drastically improved my own existence. And even Sam's admitted to me that she's like, wow, you're very enjoyable to live with. And to be honest, not that she would say I wasn't in the past, but when I was going through a lot of these challenges, I was very negative. And when my mental health wasn't good, you know, I saw a lot of things through kind of a gray perspective. So it makes sense that being around that is infectious. And, you know, that's unfortunate when I think about how that would have affected her. And that is a bummer, right? So, you know, it is amazing when you decide to make these changes. Not only does it make your life better, but it enhances everyone else's lives around you as well. So that's the lesson for today. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Let me know if this one resonated with you. And I want you to comment down in the bottom below if you're watching this on YouTube. Let me know what specifically resonated with you. And if you're also going through a similar kind of mindset journey like this as well, I'd love to hear about it. And just make sure that you like this video, subscribe to stay peaked. And if you haven't seen our recent vlog, go check it out a few videos back. You're going to love it. Thanks again. Stay tuned for the next episode.